So before the video starts, I'm gonna need you, yes you, to subscribe and click the bell so you get all my videos notified to you on your phone or your computer. Peace out. So we are back, and in this video I'll basically be showing you guys a tier list of every race in Dragon Ball Online Generations. I've removed certain races because, otherwise the video will be too long, but you can find it out yourself. You should know which of these races, like Tuffles and androids and stuff like that. But let's get right into it. So we'll start at the top, which is obviously the best race in the game, being obviously Bojack. Bojack is an amazing race for literally everything. It's the best race in the game, and especially for its physical damage and its health. It has amazing stats for boosts, naturally base boosts for its physical health and damage. And not only to that to boot, but also the fact that their race ability has to do with literally you reduce your damage by 50% when your health literally turns red. That's just crazy amounts of health right there. It's like boosting your health by 2 times when you're low, so that's very good. The second race we have is the Freezer race. The Freezer race is a key based race in which you can basically just spam key moves over and over again after each other. It's just a very key using race. If you want to use this race, you should focus on key and key only, because you will be able to literally just send out a key like crazy key moves. Heavily focus on key. That's really all I have to say about that race. Let's get on to the next race. So basically the third race we're talking about is Majin. Majin is a race that's based around the regeneration. They can heal themselves very fast and quick and by a lot of health. That's why I put it in A. It's very good for PvE and PvP wise, both as well, and that's why they're put in A. I put high ranks because if they're both very useful for A or C. But what I mean by that, if when I put them in A or C, they should be very useful for both PvP and PvE as well. So I put it in A because it's useful for both. Next up we have humans. Humans are basically the race in which they basically can charge up very fast with their max power, and that can be used for doing lots of ultimates very quickly. So that's a very good thing, because you will be able to spam your ultimate moves very fast, and that's beneficial both in PvE and PvE. But it's not crazy good, but I'll still place it in A. If it was crazy good, I'd put it in S. But as we all know, the reason this list is not based around this, because the game is pretty balanced, in which every race has certain things good about them. This is not really a race that just sucks outright. There are certain ones that'll come very soon, but most of these races will be pretty balanced in terms of both PvE and PvP. What I mean by that, most of them will not have very distinguishing things about them, which is why they're all stacked up in A or B. Anyway, humans are just like that, just very good for using ultimates, but that's that. Next race being Namekian. Namekian is basically a lesser version of a Majin. They have regeneration, but they don't have super regeneration, which is what Majins have. So if you don't want to become Majin for whatever reason, you just take Namekian. It's still a very good race and has very nice transformations, but other than that, it's just a lesser version of Next up we have Canathans. Canathans, the fish race. I think they're meant for melee and fast. They have very fast stamina regeneration. That's why I put in A. They're still worse than Majins, but they're not as good as Canathans. Bojacks, which is why they're at A, not S. Even though I feel like Canathans and Bojacks are very similar, Bojacks I think are much better than Canathans still, even though they are very similar in their own ways. Next up we have demons, in which their only trait being they don't train from blocking. Now this was good before because they had some very good broken stuff for PvP, but irregardless, they get no drain from blocking. This is as good as humans, I'd say. That's just it really. It's not much more to be said about it. It's just a very decent race. I'd still go for other races personally, but that's just me though. If you like how the demons look, I say go for it. They're still good. They're just not as good as the others on the tier list. Next up we have is Bio-Android. Bio-Androids function around natural regeneration. Basically they heal passively, but you have to stay still now, which is a bad thing, because if you stay still you cannot avoid moves, but whatever. Secondly, they don't have very good damage, which is why they're still better than Namekians though. So yeah, Next up we have Yetretians. Yetretians are basically, the premise of them is basically they get key from punching you. Every race does this, but they get it by a long shot more than you or every other race. So that's why they're good. They're in A because there are very certain strategies you can do and very interesting techniques you can use in Yetretians, which will be, you know, beneficial for the Yetretian. Then they can gain key by just punching. They can do certain combos that give them back their key, blah blah blah. Very simple to understand. Saiyans, basically Saiyans race ability is they gain double the melee damage when their health is in the red, but there's an issue here in which most Saiyans usually die before, you know, they can use this ability efficiently. So that just is, so if you want to use a Saiyan, you better have a good stat build, otherwise you're just gonna get beat, you know, because your race ability doesn't help you if you don't have a good stat build. If you had a good stat build along with Saiyans, maybe then yes, it'd be a put it higher, but since, you know, if you just go by the average Saiyans stat builds, we can say most likely it's not going to be good. You know, you just have to find out the right stat build for a Saiyan, and boom, right there you have yourself a pretty good race right there. But it all depends on how you play. As I said, these races are pretty balanced. You just have to find out a way to play them. Matter of fact, the worst race in this race tier list can beat the Bojacks, just depending on, you know, how skilled and what certain stat build and a bunch of other metrics that can be used in terms. So if you want to just choose what you like, if you like Saiyans and you like the Super Saiyan, all that stuff, you can choose a Saiyan. You don't have to go based off of this entire tier list or any tier list for that matter. Half Saiyans are basically Saiyans, but they have a worse ability, as simple as that. Not much more needs to be said. Yeah, they're half Saiyans after all, so that's what we expect anyway. Next up we have Kais, in which they probably are the worst race in Dbog because they have very bad damage, and not only is their ability bad, but also literally because of that, their ability has to do with snap vanishing. Basically they don't drain anything from snap vanishing or snap chasing, but the thing is that doesn't provide any benefit because anybody can beat that. That's just that. I think that's all.